Government drama llama ding dong talking about that trip to Kentucky. This is relatively recent, but I want to make sure that it doesn't fly under the radar, and today is as good a time as any to discuss Fort Knox. Why is this important? Well, because Goofus wants to go take a look and confirm that it's there too. I hope he faceplants super hard on the sidewalk before entering that building. We do not need his literal, grimy, potato chip covered fingers on the actual gold. As a llama that refuses to let this whole DOGE thing go, let's talk about what it's at today. Well, did they ever make it to Fort Knox? Well, they began efforts to gain physical access to the United States Bullion Depository at Fort Knox. Musk reportedly insisted on a live video walkthrough of the secured United States Army facility. Non-authorized personnel have been given access only 3 times in history: in 1943 for FDR, 1974 for members of Congress, and in 2017 for then Secretary Steve Mnuchin and other congressional delegations. So it turns out they never did get access to this. At least there's that. There's an entire Wikipedia page donated to the U.S. federal agencies targeted by DOGE. And as a reminder, this operation allowed Elon Musk and a network of operatives to facilitate mass layoffs, to terminate contracts, and to slash regulations. Many public records were modified or removed from federal websites and databases. These actions have fostered reactions by federal workers, civil society, and the public, ranging from protests to lawsuits. Let's just go through a few of these, shall we? Starting off with the U.S. Forest Service. On February 5th, USFS employees could not access their performance review portal, and at the start of April, DOGE terminated a tree planting program in St. Louis, citing anti-DEI push. On February 4th, DOGE entered the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Staff from the NOAA Information Technology Group and the Department of Commerce attempted to keep them from the systems according to security protocols, but they defied authorized security staff and forcefully entered the facilities. Then on February 17th, they released 1,127 federal contracts spanning 39 federal departments and agencies, which included several NOAA contracts. Of course, we aren't done. They also went after the National Science Foundation and terminated about $1 billion in grants that were already awarded. Not to mention, the National Transportation Safety Board had a team assigned to them to review the operation. Then our favorite, Office of Personnel Management, DOGE entered on January 20th, 2025 and locked workers out of their computer system. And how could we forget? February 22nd, an email from OPM's domain was sent to all federal employees asking what they accomplished in the past week. Several departments instructed their employees not to respond to that email. On April 18th, 2025, an Innovation and Human-Centered Design team, the lab at OPM, working on government efficiency and tackling complex issues, was eliminated. Oh, look, it's almost like we had something in place before DOGE showed up. They went after regulatory independent agencies such as the Federal Trade Commission on May 20th. They also went after legislative agencies such as the Consumer Product Safety Commission. On May 7th, the acting chair of the CPSC, Peter Feldman, sought approval by email to bring in DOGE affiliates Justin Fox and Nate Kavanaugh with a 2-hour deadline. After this demand was refused, the administration or regime fired the 3 Democratic board members. And wouldn't you know, there was also a Government Accountability Office that already existed, and on May 16th, DOGE sought to assign a team to this particular office, and of course, the officials refused. On May 12th, Joe Morell accused DOGE members of requesting unauthorized transfer of data from Library of Congress employees, and on May 16th, DOGE tried to access the Office of Congressional Workplace Rights. DOGE announced in May 2025 that it terminated 5 surveys from the United States Census Bureau without specifying which one. They also gained access to data at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and they also managed to gain access to payment and contracting systems at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and the officials refused to say which medical and financial records DOGE had gained access. It's also important that, lest we forget, February 17th, 2025, DOGE agents fired staff from the Food and Drug Administration involved in ongoing clinical trials of the safety of Elon Musk's Neuralink company, which creates implantable brain-computer interfaces as commercial product. I highly recommend looking at this page on Wikipedia. The amount of damage done by the DOGE is going to take us years to fix. I think it's also easy to forget the amount of damage they were doing in such a short amount of time. This also shows that there were already agencies and entities in place that were meant to look at things like fraud and abuse within the government system. We didn't need a DOGE to be created, which means that it was created for nefarious reasons.